what excites me the most is seeing how they've interpreted the history of Panem. Because obviously it's not a real world. It's a world that has been made up by Suzanne Collins' brain.
Get ready to return to Panem in The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The prequel story is set during the 10th annual Hunger Games, 64 years before the events of the original book trilogy and subsequent film series. The cast of the new film spoke to The Hollywood Reporter all about their roles and shed some light on just how this movie differs from the Hunger Games films released from 2012 to 2015 that fans know and love. Star Rachel Zegler has admitted that she was a big fan of the original movies. In this new film, she plays Lucy Gray Bayard, the girl tribute from District 12 chosen to compete in the 10th annual games.
How do you think your knowledge of this world informed your portrayal of Lucy Gray and helped you play her?
That's a great question. It's so awesome to have a deep knowledge of the universe that you're in. And also, it's fun to then dial it back. I think you've said rewind the tape a bit and then get to really get into the meat and potatoes of how it came to be. And Suzanne gave us such great source material with our book. And so I felt so at home getting to step into the world of Panem and getting to do all of that. And also just the fan in me was just giddy the entire time.
Zegler's Lucy Gray is mentored in the story by none other than young Coriolanus Snow, who fans know goes on to become the tyrannical president of Panem.
This is a villain origin story, and when we see Coriolanus cross that line into evil, he never really comes back from it. How did you go about portraying that gradual descent into darkness?
Yeah. I kind of went through a process of starting afresh with him, which is what the book does as well. You know, it forgets all the stuff that happens later on in his story and really rewinds history on the universe of Panem and says, you know, where did he come from? Why is he the way he is? And I got to kind of like really dissect him psychologically, which I love doing with characters. And to do that, the film is broken up into 3 acts, really, 3 major acts. And I kind of broke up Coriolanus's progression into 3 acts as well, and kind of he's like Corio the boy at 18, and then he's Coriolanus the man in the middle act, or becoming a man, and then Coriolanus Snow, future president to be, in the 3rd act. And by the 3rd one, by the end, you're like kind of, as an audience member, you're like I hope people are like scratching at their eyeballs, being like, no, don't go down that path, even though we all know he's going to because we've seen what happens. And hopefully, like, even though we know where it goes, you're still kind of like desperate for him not to do it and not to go off the deep end in a dark way.
Just as fans of the franchise know what becomes of Coriolanus Snow, they also know that Panem looks much different in this new prequel than it does in the first film starring Jennifer Lawrence, which is set during the 74th iteration of the games.
What difference between the 2 versions of Panem that we now get to see struck you the most?
The show about it, you know, like how it's just making a big show out of the Hunger Games themselves, and how we go from Lucky Flickerman, the meteorologist on Capitol News, you know, covering them falling into the zoo and then becoming the host of the Hunger Games, to then 64 years into the future, Caesar Flickerman has his own talk show and is basically doing late night to interview them all, and they get all done in hair and makeup. It's just crazy to me because I know that, you know, it wasn't like that at first. I
like that the media spectacle of it all had not been polished in this story, in About Songbirds and Snakes, because that, I think, finding reasons for people to watch the games is still a project underway, and everybody's bouncing all these ideas like, we need to make this more of a spectacle, and Snow is ultimately the one who, you know, puts his hat in the ring and kind of invents what we see in the original trilogy.
On a more aesthetic level, and like as a sci-fi geek, I think it was really interesting the way, I mean, because the Capitol that we know in the original trilogy is kind of so like polished and really like high future, and this was it was such a fun kind of take on like what the future would be, but with like a twinge of like past flavor. And I don't know, I think like the DP and the people who were in charge of like building that visual world like killed it. It was so it was so much fun.
Our designers and Francis came up with an amazing world that is like almost 1950s-esque aesthetically, but also with all like the technology that we know Panem has. And you know, we'd be on set and you're like, you almost feel like you're in a period film, like in a period movie, while also being in a futuristic dystopian movie at the same time. And just in terms of your imagination as an actor, it's so rich. You know, you've got like 1950s looking cars driving past you and people in like long trench coats and gowns, but it's all electric. And there are drones flying around and stuff, and everything was real. We were on location the whole time, no green screens in sight, so it was all built by the design team, and all very tangible.
The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes flies into theaters in the US on November 17th. For more on the film, go to THR.com. For the Hollywood Reporter News, I'm Tiffany Taylor.